I will try this evening to paint a picture of why we did the review the way we did, and where it would lead to, and how it relates to my my own view, my own particular take on urban planning and strategic work, and try to illustrate a working method as much as talk about the review, and lead on to what I hope will be some ideas for what the Academy of Urbanism might then take forward. I'm going to start with one or two slides, though, from that are pages from the review. We talked with Ed Basil's office, and he consulted with many other departments about the subjects of the review. And in a way, we kept them. It seemed quite a reasonable number of producers. So there was. Sorry. So there was education, outreach skills, design quality, cultural heritage, economic benefits. And then we added the fifth, which was built environment policy. In a way, that was a question mark as much as a statement. And indeed, we had it to start with, and the various government departments say, please don't do that. So we never let it look like that. We met with a panel and we met with the panel individually all the way through. We did a set of workshops. We wanted to make the reach as wide as possible so that the buy-in and take-up would be as wide as possible. We did it, and we did it very willingly on the basis that it was our and the panels and everybody's expense. In other words, we did not have a patron. We did not act for the government. This was an independent group. And that's going to be the main thing I'm going to talk about, because I think very often to redefine a problem requires independence. And I think that act of independence extends not only to rethinking a big an issue like urban planning and cities in the future, but also it's one because it's a working method very much in our practice. This was a central theme of the review, that we are in a century of city. And I think you're all aware of it, but it needs to be said again and again. And indeed, in the review, a lot of people said, well, you're saying something that we already know, but Sunan put it very well. He said, just because something's been said before, it doesn't mean it doesn't need to be said. There's global warming. You don't say, oh well, we can't mention that being already mentioned. It is a fact of life, and it does need to be said again and again. And the fact that we're building a new Birmingham, I think every day or every week anyway, more often than we think we are, and that the level of urbanisation is an extraordinary phenomenon this century, this age. And that means not only buildings, but city making, and then governance and stewardship, how we manage our cities, how we, what I call the urbicultural revolution that follows on from the agricultural revolution. Now we're very much in the world of urbanness. We did come up with an acronym. Max invented this acronym, PLACE, and it was an acronym that could be interpreted many ways. You can't quite see it here, but planning, landscape, architecture, conservation, and engineering. Others have interpreted differently: politics, law, advocacy, and so on. It doesn't matter. It actually means it's all inclusive. But I have always argued that patronage who pays the piper is an impediment to city making. That, and I have this phrase, which I've used a lot, this place is climb, and it has led me. This is an old slide. It was one where I did about 10 years ago or so, when I had done a study of the Royal Parks. I made proposals for changing Buckingham Palace. The very first one was the Thames study of the lost public realm, and then Euston Road. And the argument was that nobody ever would ask, there would never be a question to say, can you please rethink the front of Buckingham Palace? It needs to be done. And in fact, somewhere along the way, there was some alterations made. There's a bit of pedestrianisation. You probably don't remember how it was. There was a huge traffic roundabout there. And no doubt Prince Philip could happily watch the tourists being run over. We came up with ideas for pedestrians. I still think it's an unfinished project. We came up with the Nash Ramblas and so on. It is a working method, though, not a charity. Some people have thought, well, you're very generous with your time. This is all pro bono work. And I said, what pro bono work? I think I'm following lead. I'm looking at a place as client. And I don't think it's because it's not a charitable gift. I think it really is for conviction. And it's also not it's not a way of deliberately getting conventional jobs. It's not a job. It's not a branch of business creation, as some have tried to do by putting forward ideas and good luck to them. But actually, it's to try and change the interpretation of the problem, change patronage, change the brief. And indeed, very often we are ready and able then to carry on and be available to do work. But the work that we do is very different because we are actually doing work that nobody ever asked to be done in the first place. And I'll give you an example of that. The best example is, or one of the best examples is over a common. I'll show you a letter that we've written, but Lord Adonis, when he was transport minister, went to Beijing South, saw the station, didn't like very much, which I was very proud of, and then he found out that he was a British architect, British engineer, Keys and Harrods and all that. And he came back and asked to see me, and I said the problem with the political debate, and a lot of the press, is everyone seems to think it's all about the lines. When it's built here, as you see with High Speed 1, everyone forgets about the lines. They cease to become an issue. The real opportunity, the real issue is it's all about the stations, but it's also about what the stations can do for the cities. It's about the regeneration, reshaping impact of the railway stations. And I think that led to us arguing several things. That we joined in with the crew that got a station there, we radically altered there, and that has come about. We have travelled a long way on Euston, because of the Euston Road, I'm talking there. But at Oldbrook Common is where we had the biggest impact. The story hasn't quite fully been swallowed and absorbed, I don't think. There are still, the commissions for High Speed 2 still went out for stations, but standalone stations. And I think that's not quite what I meant. What I originally said, and I still stand by this, is that it's about the stations as regenerators. In fact, stations as bits of cities. The tendency is to look at transportation side of things, the railways or airports, whatever, tend to think of themselves as standalone and not integrated in the city. These are the projects that we have begun to do. The real station, railway station today, is a piece of city. And this is our station in Hong Kong, which has 11, 12 million square feet on top of it. But it's still an extraordinary piece of station design and engineering. It is a grand hall. It's interesting, the tradition of stations in this country, the preconception always is we're stuck in the Victorian age, that stations moved on in the 20th century, which is quite woken up to that, but we still think that a railway station is a grand big hall that occupies its own ground. Grand Central, Milan, and then the Chinese ones, such as this one, have demonstrated that actually a railway station now is a town centre, and it's about a grand concourse in which the trains are then secondary. But we tend still to think of a railway station being somewhere that actually is platforms and trains at the same time, which was going back to the time of steam. We have eventually ended up with 9-10 commissions at Overcome. I think not one of those would have been had been thought of at the time. And actually, unless we had done, we had initiated. This is the letter that we wrote to the head of Amsterdam, and I quoted Lord Douglas about the stations, and I ended up saying, with easy links between Crossrail, On-Rail, and HS2, this represents an incredible opportunity to bring urban regeneration on a significant scale to the world. Well, we spent a long time now looking at how the Crossrail depot, how the Crossrail sidings, how the brief that's been given on HS2 isn't just for a station, it's for the district. And we're looking at the district, we're looking at all kinds of other parts of that, which I don't think would have happened unless you approached it from the place of crime. The Marble Euston Road is the same. We proposed that. Actually, it began with Ken Livingstone and Richard Rogers, where they had 100 new squares, and they then reduced it to 10 because they thought that was more manageable. And they called in 10 architects and asked them each to do a square, and I took on one that nobody else wanted to do because it was the Euston Road. And Camden had said that one because of King's Cross frontage, and because one day Euston or what have you, we wanted to look at. And there are now 20-30 projects based upon the study we did around the Euston Road. And the reason I mention this is because unless you actually invent and rethink the problem, you tend, as architects and planners, to follow the structure of patronage. You follow where the funding came from. The trail leads you to conventional thinking of what everybody wants now. And that's why I think bodies like the Academy of Urbanism, the Design Group, and us doing the review on an independent basis, it's the only way you can ensure that you're actually thinking correctly and independently. I think the nearest parallel I can think of in business is something like the way IBM was spending millions on research into computers and the future of computers. But it took two kids in their garage to prove that it was not about computers, it's about software and Microsoft. And indeed, after that stage, Facebook and the social networking was invented again by kids without funding, without the big business behind it. And I think that changes the world. I mean, and I think urbanism is about thinking differently about the city, thinking differently about cities leads you to think differently about buildings. At the moment, in the minds of all those that are commissioning HS2 stations, they're one kind of architecture, i.e. the big halls, standalone, and so on. Actually, if you start from the real issue, is that, as Peter Hall said, stations today are actually town centres. That's what stations are. And now you have clean rail. Now you have electric. And now cities, now that railway stations are good neighbours, they are totally different animals. And so you rewrite the architectural brief, and a different architecture then emerges. And I think that's important. Architecture should follow these briefs and not be seen as a standalone thing. We also looked rail and airports, beginning from the Oval Common. We began to think about the fact that the Oval Common connected to most of London's airports. The only one that didn't connect to was Stansted. But it did connect to an extraordinary number. So that got us thinking about the airport again. I had actually been asked by Boris at one stage if I would follow through and look at the airport. I said to him there, actually, I think that's solutioneering, and I use that phrase a lot. I think that actually you don't know whether it's the estuary or not. You don't know whether it's closing feature or not. Actually, what's needed is a proper, responsible big picture study of air travel for the South East, for London, and indeed for the UK. And that's a big ask. I know that has to be done. We can't start off with a solution, I argue. And trouble is, when you start off with a solution, you start off with today's solution. If you look at H.G. Wells' prediction of the future, it's actually the 1935 prediction of the future. If you start solutioneering, the airport and the planes that you envisage to fly are going to be, at this day and age, rather than something that evolves across the time. So we actually then proposed that our view was, long before Gavin came to us, we said it's about connectivity. It's about really extraordinary improvements of connectivity of rail, of pedestrian, of bus, and indeed of all the airports connecting to London and so on. And so Gatwick came to us then, and we had a lot of work on this idea, but they came to us, and we argued straight away to Gatwick. Actually, we think it could just as easily be Stansted or Birmingham or Luton. There could be many variables to how you get better connectivity. Though the more I went into it, the more I think if the first view runway is anywhere, there ought to be the second one to Gatwick. And so we have progressed that. I just throw in here another one that we came up with 12 years ago or so now. Actually began in 1993 when I was asked to be on the Royal Parks Recruitment. And I said, actually, everyone's looking at the parks as in isolation. I think it's all about how you get to the parks. And so I did a study of where the underpasses were. Oops. These are the underpasses at Hyde Park Corner, these are Park Lane. Nobody on the east side of the park could get to the park without going through an underpass. So I proposed, let's make all the crossings on the surface. And here we are, 20 years later, and they are now all on the surface. And indeed, they've created opportunities for new events and features on these best crossings. There was no, obviously in that there wasn't any work for us, and I quite happily worked with that. What was interesting was when architects got involved, it's like the Marble Arch Corner competition, the winning one was a building, and I thought it's kind of a knee-jerk. I do buildings, you come to me and I'll give you a building. They need to redefine get at the problem, redefine it. I've also had the work on the Thames Estuary Parklands. I began that 10 years ago, Idaho, with CPRE. We got together to make a proposal. There was an intermediary stage when Yvette Cooper came on the scene, and we were asked to present the case. Did a one-year study. We then continued it afterwards. And the real success for me, the real success was that in due course there was £70 million spent on real projects, on pathways, on visitor centres, on extending wetlands and so on. What we did actually wasn't to make a scheme, we just on the map all the bits that you saw everyone else was proposing. And I think this whole issue of who are you trying to make a review for and why? Not only are we often met with people saying to us, where's the funding coming from? And if you're going to propose something like urban groups, where's the funding? And I think voluntary organizations have a huge power to reinvent and think on their own feet. And I also, in parallel with them, when people say to me, what are you going to get the government to do? I actually think you can't really rely upon the government to do very much at all. And this diagram, which was part of the review diagrams, shows, to my mind, why. This is a 50-year period, the Second World War. It's too small to see here, but you can see it in the paper. This is where environment, planning and transport has been, where it's always been in government over the 50-year period. It was with the Ministry of Works, and then the Ministry of Works and Planning. I thought it was Ministry of Works and Transport, then Ministry of Transport. Only at one point in time, in the late 70s, early 80s, was the one body called Department of Environment. But it quickly split up, and now it's in several parts. And indeed, our review, as it's called, we can't just aim it at DCMS. It's got to include planning, DCLG, it's got to include bids, it has to include transport, and so on. And when I said to Labour Shadow Minister what their proposals were they going to keep these same departments? Should they get in next year, in 2015? The reply was, probably not. We're going to rethink those departments. So who do you aim it at? Whose policy is it? In the meantime, of course, Treasury has been in the same department, the same silo, and the same building. Home Office is in a new building. The Foreign Office is in the same buildings, and it's the same name. We still don't know what the name will be in a year's time, because whichever government gets in will change the names and change the seating on the deck chair and on the deck chair. The interesting thing is that no silo really is a silo, and I think you'll have to deal with networks. This is the Treasury so-called silo, but actually it deals with everything. These are all departments where the Treasury money goes. This is a Guardian drawing. It's interesting, this is DCMS, one of the smallest satellites, and indeed that has lots of little rooms on little satellites around, and somewhere in there is architecture. The reality is, though, the more departments I talk to in this value review, the more I realise big chunks of all of them, health and defence, are actually dealing with buildings and cities and environment. So it's a complex story, and I think to try and aim it at one department is not the right way to go. I think the policy should be embedded with us, not and in which there is a share with the government, but I think to try and win a policy statement from government won't last. It won't endure. So I propose that there should be an independent policy leadership council. But there should be place-based leadership. There should be city-based, town-based. And it's surprising how much of a city, any city, is actually still not in charge of everything. The roads that go through many a city are the county roads. Schools, or what have you, are not often, are housing. They're not treated as place-based thing, place-based entities. And so, the other day we had this thing called Big Meat, and what we're looking for, what I hope will lead on from the review, which is now 3-4 months, is that we get take-ups of different ideas. And Matthew Carmona and others at the UCL organised an event last Thursday, which I thought was really quite wonderful event. It was called the Big Meat. And the aim of it is to establish, first of all, a place alliance, which will then lead to a place leadership council and be the first step. So it's taken up one of the threads of where policy sits, who makes policy. The extraordinary thing about it was was that there were 80 different groups that came last Thursday. And I led an organisation as the founding chairman called UDAO in 1997-98. And one of the first jobs that I undertook to do, which I went with a design group I have great affection for, in George, it's good, was to go and see Chris Smith, I think it was, who was the minister, and say that I understood that the Royal Fine Art Commission was ending, and he was establishing everything called the Commission for Architecture, called the CA, I suppose. And I said that we really need to have a design or built environment or something. And so it became CABE. That kind of did for UDAL actually, in a way, because CABE, the BE bit, was one of the most successful bits of CABE. But like all these things, like UDAL was able to argue to get BE stuff out of CA, CABE itself ran a course. It ran a course of setting up things and doing things, and actually it's been, in many ways, it's been extraordinarily successful in ways that are not often acknowledged, because the sons of CABE and the way that different sections of CABE and place reviews or design reviews around the country and so on have been an extraordinary success. And I actually think there's a cycle in these things. I think the leaner CABE is a good thing. And I think some people on CABE think that too. But I do think the problem is that as soon as you become funding obsessed and have to get the money from government, you look at who government is, and you are, if I may say so, often the victim of what those politics are. And I think independence is also a good thing to have. And, anyway, I've got suggestions for the Academy of Urbanism. I've got two suggestions of things you might take up that you may think are ours on board. One is that I went to a round table, kind of a mini demos at Kenwood House about 6 months ago, where lots of different organisations were interested in heritage. And the main centre of discussion was around historic English towns and the problem of housing growth, and that the government allocated housing numbers, they felt, somewhat indiscriminately, so that Norwich or Lincoln or York was meant to take as many houses, in their view, as, say, Slough or Macclesfield, and they said they're different cases. And I think that I'm very sympathetic to that, and we all discussed the fact that what's English heritage has identified is you can't look at one without the other. You can't look at historic towns and look at non-historic towns. They are about to launch a thing called, I think, heritage towns or something. But my view is that there needs to be a voice for the ordinary towns. They've got their own heritage too. I think there is a case for looking, combining with heritage to say, as we said in the review, it's not either or anymore. And I think that's one of the great things about heritage. It's important heritage does always move in concert with the new. Otherwise, they're always going to be seen as opposition. I really liked last year that Sterling Prize was given to an adaptation of the existing building. I think most architects and most planners and most people now do not think that to preserve the old is to stop the new, as we used to think 20 years ago. But I think it's the same with towns. I think there needs to be the case made that it's not just about preserving Lincoln or York. It's also about looking at Slough and Macclesfield and Ashford and Bicester and so on. So that's one idea, is there might be a combination. You get stuck in with English heritage to prove, even looking at towns. much more literate about place. That we see planning committees that don't quite understand drawings, and don't understand what the history of the town was and why things are where they are. I always like to go around town and say, why are things the way they are? Because half the time, people think there's a good reason, and there often isn't a good reason. I argued this at the underpass at Tottenham Court Road and Euston Road, where people say, oh, that's clearly, nobody would have built that unless there was a good reason for it, it's a speed and traffic. Actually, it has no good reason to be there, because it was part of a plan to do underpasses all the way from West Wales, all the way out east. It was the only one that was built. And so it doesn't speed the traffic at all. It's utterly useless. The fact is, to take it away now is more expensive than other solutions. But so I think it's fascinating to go around towns and say, why is that there? Why are we putting up with it? One of the questions I ask is railings. We are obsessed with railings in this country. I measured there's 3.5 kilometres of railings along Euston Road and Malvern Road, between Edgware Road and King's Cross stations. Many other cities around the world don't have any railings at all. You go to San Francisco, there's no railings. They don't do railings. We do railings. So why are the railings there? People say they're there to protect pedestrians. They're not actually. They're there to prove some traffic engineering forecast of throughput of vehicles. They're there to ensure that vehicle movements are maintained. They're not to protect you. So you have to ask, why are things the way they are? And I think that urban literacy about your town, your city, why is it the shape it is? I think that's a big project. As soon as you see a model in something like the NLA, and there's a little one, a little architecture centre in Cork, where there's a model of the whole town, and people just love to see where the church is, where the playing fields are. And I think that spatial town place literacy is incredibly important. And I know the Academy of Urbanism has been one of the few that's concentrated on what we have now, why we have it, and so on. But I think to campaign for everywhere having an urban room, every town, people say to me straight away, well, where's the funding coming from? Well, NLA invented its own funding. It is extraordinary from their own debit. They get nearly 700,000 a year from the cafe. Just to quickly go through, to finish other things in the review, I'm very passionate about making the planning system more proactive. A week and a half ago, Nick Bulls, it was his favourite project, and he was going to have a conference in the autumn. He isn't there anymore, and I'm now trying to bang on the door to get that conference through. Luckily, our minister's still there, Nick Basie, but he's the minister of a small bit. We've got a little bit more. We've now got a toehold in this. The other one was place reviews that I was very keen on, and we all panel in the review itself, on there being not design reviews that are just for planning applications, but there should be place reviews for places that exist already. You should have a review of your own high street. It should be possible to get a great review to go and look at it, do a review as though it's a proof, as though you're actually giving advice, but it shouldn't just be usual professionals, it should be wider. So it should be of existing places, it should be campuses, like university campuses or hospital campuses. And it shouldn't just be tied to planning applications. We have another thread that is gaining traction, which is the idea of an international festival of architecture in London. And we already have quite substantial take-up on this idea from the London Festival of Architecture, Paul Finch and the World of Architecture Festival and others looking at how that could be taken up next year. And then finally, the Place Leadership Council, as I mentioned earlier. So I've kind of counted through a mixture of things of the review and why I think where it sits in my own approach to life and practice, and some of the things that might be taken up possibly by bodies such as yourself. And we've got quite a long time for questions.
Yes. Thank you.